We are off and running on a Tuesday evening, the start of the NBA play-in. Not the playoffs. The play-in starts tonight. The playoffs start on Saturday. The Los Angeles Lakers visiting the New Orleans Pelicans, and then win or go home with Sacramento hosting the Golden State Warriors. That is Jared Smith. I am Tim Murray with you for the next 3 hours. Lots of draft discussion today on the program. Looking forward to talking to Tony Pauline later on in this hour, about 15 minutes from now. Also in this hour, Mike Sanford Jr. will give us some thoughts as he has, and we continue to break down prospects, so we'll chat with him. Hour 2, we will get an NBA play-in/playoffs preview with Doug Kazarian. So fun show ahead. As always, you can tweet us. He's at Jared Lee Smith. I'm at 1Tim Murray. And here we sit. The play-in tournament starts tonight, Jared. Right now, the Lakers are a 1-point underdog at most shops. I do see 1.5 out there. This has been a fascinating line because last night when we were on the air, the Lakers were a 1-point underdog. This morning, it got as high as 2.5, and now you've seen the buyback here on the Los Angeles Lakers. Total sitting at 224.5. There's a 225 out there if you do like the under. Should be a fun one. We just saw this game transpire on Sunday, so this does feel a little bit like try to Men in Black yourself and forget what you saw. A little bit. Not fully, but a little bit, because you would think if what we saw on Sunday afternoon was going to happen again, you'd max bet the Lakers. But there's a reason that this number has stood and remains at 1 between the Pelicans and the Lakers.
Yeah, I think to me the total being the one real mover here.
Yep.
Significant mover, I think, is pretty evident. And I'm not going to bore you with analytics and stuff that JVT's usually really sharp at handicapping on the NBA side. I'll just give you a very simple situational angle that screams under. These teams just faced each other 3 days ago, right? Like they just played each other, and the stakes are higher now. So I think that's why you're seeing handle to the under here. I think that's why the market has moved. Again, at this stage of the season, for a total to move, 4 points is a pretty big move. So I did take a little bit of under, and I'm not overly excited about getting in at a bad number and being a little late to the party, as they say. But I do think that's the right side of this game, as I use the air quotes. Not really a side. It's a total, but you get the point. So defensively, I think Zion's going to have a tough night. The Lakers are going to collapse. I bet the over 2.5 turnovers prop. It's juicy, but that's been something. I'll pull up the angle right here for you. When he plays 36 minutes, he's averaging 3.5 per game. And you just think because of the high-profile nature of the game, he is going to get you 36 minutes tonight. Over in 4 or 5 games against the Lakers since the start of 22. Over in 8 of the last 10 overall, period, regardless of how many minutes he's averaging. And over in 7 of 10 losses. Well, if we think the Lakers are going to win this game, the Pelicans are going to lose, well, over in 7 of the last 10 games that New Orleans loses, I think Zion will have plenty of opportunities to touch the ball tonight. But I think the Lakers defense will be very up to the task. So that's the only angle I have in this game. I'm sure there's some good stuff on the Lakers side. You know, some LeBron props you might be interested in because he always seems to raise his game. But I haven't tracked that or followed that enough this year to really give you any context. So I think the Zion prop makes sense to the over turnovers. And to me, it's going to be a defensive grinder kind of a game.
LeBron James and the Lakers have played in the play-in twice. They have won both of those games. However, covered neither. Now, if they won tonight, they obviously would cover because they are the underdog tonight against the New Orleans Pelicans. 26 points per game in those 2 games, 10.5 rebounds per game, 8 assists per game, and he's averaged 40 minutes per game. So he's going to play a lot. I do think from a scheduling standpoint, the Lakers being a little bit of an older team, we know Anthony Davis dealing with back spasms that he dealt with in the Sunday victory over the Pelicans. But I do think the fact that they didn't have to travel, they could stay there in New Orleans, does benefit a team that is led by
good point.
Certainly a guy in his 21st season like LeBron James. I do not have a bet on this game. We'll get to our best bets, as we always do, at the bottom of the hour. But I am, it's funny because this is year 3 of the play-in tournament. I guess we had it in the bubble. It was kind of weird,
sure.
A little unique. But this is, since we've gotten out of the bubble, this is the first time we have seen, or third time we have seen the play-in tournament, and it's been fun. It's been enjoyable to deal with, and to get Lakers, Pelicans, and then tonight Golden State, Sacramento. Golden State Sacramento is interesting because we have seen continuous movement towards the Golden State Warriors here. Where we sit at circa, it's juiced 3 minus 115 for the Warriors. Excuse me, minus 110 in a lot of spots. We actually show DraftKings right now hanging at a 2.5, so that's the best number that is currently available on the Golden State Warriors money line price. The best one you're going to find is at DraftKings at minus 142. Jared. I do like the Warriors in this spot. I think they've been playing a lot better from putting it all together down the stretch here. Getting a bit of a discount at DraftKings versus some other shops at minus 142 versus minus 155. No Malik Monk, no Kevin Huerter. The depth for Sacramento has certainly been tested here down the stretch. So. I was texting with Damon Bruce, Bay Area legend, unable to come on tonight. Hopefully maybe later the week if the Warriors do win. And I think it boils down simple enough to who's hitting their threes tonight, which is always a bit of a variable, and we talk about a lot during the NCAA tournament. So a slight lean for Golden State here in this spot. Might get involved in this one. But I think for you, as you mentioned it, you've got two games with very short spreads. New Orleans minus 1.5. You've got Golden State minus 3, 2.5. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you mentioned yesterday on the show that these are two games potentially that you could absolutely look to trade live.
Oh, listen, guys, if you don't have a pre-flop position at this stage, at this point, just wait and watch the game and enjoy. And if you're interested in getting involved, you don't have to bet on every game. Newsflash, guys, you don't have to bet on girls. You don't have to bet on every game. But I thought under was another really good bet early in the process. I got in at a number late last night where I feel a little bit better about the movement that we've seen to the under again this morning. And we're seeing all the sharp shops, 222.5. I got 223.5 last night. And, same thing for that Lakers-Pels game. You're sitting 225, at some of the square shops and 224.5 at some of the sharper shops here in town. So it kind of feels like both games trending under. I haven't watched Sacramento enough. I watched Golden State a little bit this year. They're a much better defensive team. They've got some young, real studs in the middle that we don't know about yet. We know about the guys on the outside for the most part. Sacramento's offense really took a hit without Huerter and Monk this year. And I just think these teams, they know each other. They face each other. 7-game series in the playoffs last year. The under was 4-3 in that series. So despite the fact that last year, both offenses significantly better, the totals were higher, to be fair. But 4 out of 7 stayed under last year. So I just think defensively, this is when the NBA that we know and love from the regular season goes bye-bye. This is a completely different season, and I'm always surprised, and I'm sure I'll be surprised again, at how much defense all of a sudden gets played in these games and just how I view the markets differently. I'm less over on points, less over on assists and rebounds, or actually more over on rebounds, less over on, the scoring categories. And I'm more interested in blocks, steals, turnovers, hustle stats. To me, that's where I think sometimes the markets aren't as fully baked into the playoff vibe because the intensity gets ratcheted up and the numbers are based off of a regular season handicap.
Right now, over at VSiN.com, we've got write-ups. Zachary Cohen wrote up the Western Conference play-in tournament. JVT, Jonathan Von Tobel, wrote up the Eastern Conference. You can always check that out. Also, free right now are our betting splits. People love the betting splits. They're updated every 5 minutes. You could use it as a tool, however you like to use it. Right now, this shouldn't come as a massive shock. 70% of the bets, 64% of the handle on the Los Angeles Lakers. But what's interesting to note, more bets coming in on the Warriors on the road, 76% of the bets, 84% of the handle on the Golden State Warriors. So, look, when you think about this play-in tournament, who are the two high-profile teams? Golden State, the team of this past 15 years or so with 4 championships. Then you've got the Lakers and LeBron James. So doesn't come as a shock.
Bracket is so pretty.
Doesn't come as a shock as that's where we sit. And lastly, and this will, I don't know if it'll be the last time I'll say this. The Lakers are not tanking tonight, okay? That's absolutely absurd.
If your betting analyst is saying that, he or she is lying to you.
Now, could they lose? Sure, they could lose because New Orleans is the favorite in this game. But
and they're Lakers, also at home.
The Lakers, in theory, if all things were equal and they knew that Sacramento without Malik Monk and without Kevin Huerter could beat Golden State tonight, and they could see into the crystal ball, which obviously their game is first. Maybe they would. Maybe, even though they got swept by Sacramento during the regular season, maybe they would be intrigued by it. But they are going to give it a go, and I'm fired up to watch it. I really am to watch the two games tonight. We'll get a little bit more perspective on the Bulls, and they're playing game tomorrow against the Atlanta Hawks. Kevin Powell from WGN 720 will join us here in studio in the second hour of the program. A lot of draft talk coming up here in 5 minutes with Tony Pauline. I'm going to add to my draft portfolio today.
I'm excited to hear it. Let's go.
2 bets to it. We'll do that in the second hour of the show. But I do want to point this out. How about the fact that the news officially came out today? Giannis will not be playing in Game 1. The Milwaukee Bucks, at most shops, including DraftKings, are now an underdog in Game 1 against the Indiana Pacers.
I guess you got to bet Milwaukee now, huh? Well,
or do you see how this game plays out? Maybe you get Pacers win Game 1, Bucks to win the series?
I like that. I like where your head's at. I also think Pacers just to win this game might be the way to go as a pick'em.
Yeah, that's a pick'em right here at Circa. So a lot of NBA chatter. Doug Kazarian in hour number 2. But 1, 2, 3. Will it be Caleb, Jaden Daniels, and J.J. McCarthy? Tony Pauline with the latest that he's been hearing about the NFL draft. He'll join us right here. We're up and running. It's VSiN Primetime.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
For a limited time, we're offering 2 weeks of our exclusive betting splits for free. Just sign up at vsin.com/splits. Our betting splits page is updated every 5 minutes with the latest DraftKings odds, so you can see all the changes in the action. Find out where the public is betting and where that money doesn't necessarily match the public opinions. Take advantage of this limited time offer. Head on over to vsin.com/splits right now for your free 2-week access to VSiN's betting splits. Alongside Jared Smith, I am Tim Murray. It is VSiN Primetime, hour 1 of the program. For those new to the show, always stream for free at youtube.com/VSiN Live. You can always watch us on YouTube TV. And the first hour of the show, hello, Chicago, Marquee Network, as we always love jumping on there. We always love to get the latest information, especially for the NFL draft. And to help us do it, a gentleman who's been covering the draft for many, many years, and he's doing it right now for sportskeeda.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline. It's Tony Pauline who joins us right now on our progressive guest line. So, Tony, so much intrigue for the quarterbacks and how they're going to fall. I want to jump to number 3 in the Patriots, because I know you reported about a week or so ago the New England Patriots there might be a little bit of a divide and a belief that Elliott Wolf, who is maybe pulling the strings, has an interest in J.J. McCarthy. So what's the latest you've heard on New England and what they might do at number 3?
Yeah, that was my first mock draft right after the Pro Day month of March ended, and that's what I was hearing, is that Elliott Wolf, the de facto general manager, who has a good history of drafting quarterbacks, likes J.J. McCarthy. They love his upside. They think he's going to be a sensational quarterback. The New England Patriots, as well as just about every team in the league that has interviewed J.J. McCarthy, has loved his interviews. I mean, he's got moxie, he's got great confidence. What I'm hearing recently is they very much like J.J. McCarthy. Whether it's J.J. McCarthy or Drake May seems to be up in the air right now, but there is a fact, the Patriots like J.J. McCarthy. There is a faction that wants him to be the 3rd pick. I think as they get through their final draft meetings and align their board, which will probably be finalized next week, Monday or Tuesday, we'll have a better grasp on the situation then.
Tony, you think the first 4 picks are all going to be quarterbacks, huh?
I think the first 3 picks will be quarterbacks. I think at least 4 of the first 5 picks will be quarterbacks, whether it's Arizona that trades down or Minnesota that trades down to a team who wants to move up and get a quarterback, whether that team be the Minnesota Vikings, the Denver Broncos, possibly the New York Giants. I think it's going to, if it's not the first 4 picks of the quarterbacks, I think it'll be 4 of the first 5 picks.
Tony Pauline, sportskeeda.com. They have a mock draft simulator up at the website. Check that out. And Tony's always giving you the latest that he's hearing from around the league on a daily basis. So, Tony, I want to jump to the other quarterbacks before we kind of look at some of the other pieces. So what's the latest you've heard regarding Michael Penix? It feels like it's all over the place. I saw an Albert Breer report about a week ago saying that front offices not in love with him, but coaches love Michael Penix. So what have you heard regarding Michael Penix and where we could see him go a week from Thursday?
I'd be surprised if he's anything other than a late first-round pick. I think that is the earliest. I mean, the fact with Penix is he's a great vertical passer. That's why coaches like him. They see the highlights. They see the ability to drive the ball down the field 40, 45 yards with accuracy and the big playability with Michael Penix and his arm. But when you look at it from a general manager's point of view, 24 years old. He's had a large injury history. He doesn't have much upside, and there's a lot of streakiness in his game. People talk about watching the cut-ups of Michael Penix throws. I think you kind of miss when you don't watch the entire game because you don't see the flow of the action. And Michael Penix is very streaky and very inconsistent. When he hits, it's a big play, but there are a lot of misses, which is why there's a concern. I think he's going to be overdrafted. I think he could be the fourth quarterback selected late in round one. I have him as an early round 2 pick right now.
So let's get to Bo Nix because I've said on this show that he's not going in the first round. It's not sourced information. It's just doing homework and seeing what coaches have said about him, Tony. So I'm curious what you've heard from around the league because there was an article today on ESPN.com from folks from around the league, and basically it was all the same. He's a safe pick, a high floor but very low ceiling type of guy. And to me, Tony, that doesn't scream first. So what have you heard regarding Bo Nix, and do you think he hears his name called next Thursday?
Well, next Thursday, no. I think it'll be on Friday. Basically, he's a game manager, and that's what teams have told me, and I believe that. I mean, you watch him play. If you could take the best of Michael Penix, the physical skills, and you could take Bo Nix, what's going on between the ears and the consistency, you'd have a top 10 quarterback. But the fact is, Nix does not have those great physical skills. He's more of a game manager. You can't use him in a vertical offense. You're going to have to put great pieces around him. He has the ability to be a successful quarterback. He's more of a Gardner Minshew type, if you will. A guy who needs everything to work well around him, but he's not a vertical passer, which there's a spot for that type of quarterback in this day and age in the NFL, but you're just not a high draft pick.
Tony, I think when you look at the skill position players in this draft, I think the receivers, tight ends, Brock Bowers especially, this could be one of the more intriguing top 15 skill position drafts that we can recall. I guess throw Bowers into the mix, but really the receivers, is there a succinct order for you? It's Harrison as a big gap between one and the rest of this class, or is Neighbors and Odunze, are those guys maybe sniffing at Harrison's heels a little bit tighter than maybe we think?
There was a big gap in January, but I think Marvin Harrison has made all the wrong moves since then. I mean, the fact that he wouldn't work out, he wouldn't catch passes, the lead up to the draft, whether it be the Senior Bowl or the Shrine Bowl or the Combine, Pro Day workouts, this is one huge job interview. And as I've said time and time again, and I heard it just this morning, when you're telling prospective employers, a la Marvin Harrison, who are about to invest tens of millions of dollars in you, that you're not going to do certain things that everyone else that has come before you has done, that's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths. I still think Marvin Harrison will be the first receiver taken off the board, likely followed by Malik Neighbors, although there are some teams that have Rome Odunze rated higher than Malik Neighbors. Those are going to be the first 3 guys. I think it'll be Harrison, Malik Neighbors, then Odunze. It wouldn't surprise me, if the Cardinals take Malik Neighbors over Marvin Harrison because it's a better fit for their system.
We're talking once again to Tony Pauline. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline. He's always giving you what he's hearing from around the league, courtesy of sportskeeda.com. You wrote an article today about some risers. Graham Barton, the tackle/center, is a guy that is certainly rising up some boards. His over-under on draft slot is 21.5. Who are some names that you've heard recently, Tony, that are rising up some draft boards here?
As I wrote in the article yesterday, Marshawn Nealon, the pass rusher from Western Michigan, most people think he's a 3rd-round pick. There is some belief that he could slide into the middle part of round 2. Mike Sanderstill, the cornerback out of Michigan, it's the MO of these Michigan players under Jim Harbaugh is they're smart, they interview well, they just come across well during the interviews, and that's it with Mike Sandestro. He could be the sixth cornerback off the board in the early part of round 2. He's a guy who is a nickelback. He's played some receiver in the past. He had a great pro day, and teams are falling in love with him. Tested very well at the combine as well.
I'm glad you mentioned corner because we haven't talked a ton about the corners in this draft class. And, the betting market, when we look at it, it has Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo as a significant favorite. But I've seen some recent mock drafts, Tony, that actually have had Terrion Arnold from Alabama making a little bit of a rise and jumping him. Have you heard anything regarding the corners and who you think ultimately will be the first corner selected next Thursday night?
Everything I've heard, and even my rankings reflected, is that Quinyon Mitchell will be the number 1 cornerback, although I don't think it'll be long before Terrion Arnold is selected off the board. It depends on what the team is looking for in a cornerback. If they're looking for a bigger, physical, press corner, you're going to go with Terrion Mitchell. If you're looking for more of a slot nickelback, a guy that can play in zone, a guy that can play backed off the line of scrimmage, you're going to look more towards Terrion Arnold. Quinyon Mitchell, basically his draft stock has been on the rise since January, but he's been a real good player at Toledo the prior 3 years before his senior season ended. He was brilliant at the Senior Bowl. He was outstanding at the Combine. He checks all the boxes. If you talk to him, he's a very level-headed, confident guy who knows what he has to do. Arnold didn't have the benefit of the Senior Bowl where Quinyon Mitchell stood out, but he's also real good. They're just two different types of cornerbacks. It depends on the type of system that you employ.
Tony, before we let you run, Tony Pauline joining us here, sportskeeda.com, one of the best in the biz when it comes to reporting the draft. Is Joe Alt a lock as the first offensive lineman selected?
I think so. I think he could go as high as the Chargers. I mean, he's a perfect fit for Jim Harbaugh. As we've seen in Michigan, what Harbaugh did with that offensive line. I think he's a guy who can play right tackle. You can slide him in there. He's big. He's massive. He's not big. He's 6'8" and change, 320 pounds. He moves well. I think it's Alt. I prefer Fashanu because he's a better pass blocker on the left side. But, what you just said, I would be shocked if Alt is not the first tackle off the board next Thursday.
Tony, love your insight as always. Appreciate the time, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you for having me.
There he is, Tony Pauline, sportskeeda.com, joining us on our progressive guest line. You can follow him on Twitter at Tony Pauline. We'll digest that, get you a little best bets. Word on the street, this guy has a big card tonight in Major League Baseball, so we got to check in on that. He loves those pitch props in the first inning. They were nailing last night, unlike my bet, which is terrible.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Make sure you head on over to vsin.com. Boy, we got a lot of great offerings over there. We got our picks page with Wes Reynolds filing it up with about 75 picks per day. We got our betting splits, which are free, vsin.com/splits. And we've got daily articles, tennis. I know producer Britton's fired up about that. We've got play-in tournaments. We got everything you could ask for. I might have to indulge a little bit in a little NFL draft conversation. I like talking about my draft bets. More draft bets to come. Might add a sprinkle, a little pizza bet on another one, but I got 2 locked in. Might do another a little bit later on in the show. Thanks, as always, to Tony Pauline. Really good stuff there. Coach Sanford, Mike Sanford, our good friend, he will join us. He wants to talk. We're going to talk some corners with him.
I'm glad you mentioned corners because that's always a position that I think is premium that doesn't get enough love.
Well, you think about Devin Witherspoon making the rise last year.
That was one of my biggest winners last year.
Yeah. It was.
And then 2 years ago, Sauce Gardner and Derek Stingley, remember?
Yeah. Well, Derek Stingley jumped Sauce, yeah.
I think the last 2 drafts, the only success I've had was handicapping corners. Nailed the corners market. We've cornered the corners market the last 2 years.
Yeah, it's interesting to note, and we'll do a little bit more draft discussion as the show goes on. We'll get you the latest, certainly on what's going on for the NBA play-in tournament. We'll keep it posted on that. Doug Kazarian going to join the program coming up at 7:15 Eastern time. But real quickly on the corners, because I was just noting a couple of mock drafts, and we're going to have Luke Swain, a.k.a. Vegas Refund, on the program later on in the show, and I use his Excel sheet as a
fantastic resource.
As a resource there. He puts together a lot of mock drafts. And just looking at the last 5 mock drafts that he's put in there, 1, 2, it's very close. It feels like it's a bit of a toss-up between Terrion Arnold and Quinyon Mitchell for first cornerback selected. And once again, it kind of goes back to the discussion that we had on the show last week, me and JVT, about the quarterbacks market. And it's gambling 101, right? It's what's the price? And to me, I think Quinyon Mitchell should be the favorite, but is there a 40% chance that Arnold could go ahead of him? I think it's possible, but I want to get a little more perspective on that. We're going to talk to Mike Sanford, see his coaching eye view on him as on those 2 cornerbacks. He wants to talk Xavier Legette too, the wide receiver,
rocketed up the board,
South Carolina. Yeah, so we're seeing some love for Xavier Legette out of South Carolina as well. So we will do a little more draft discussion coming up in 15 minutes. But as mentioned, this guy loaded up his card today from a betting perspective. So let's get to it. Our best bets.
I see you using an old style.
I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom.
Putting our money where our mouth is.
I like to live dangerously.
It's time for Best Bets.
Come on, Jerry, it's a lock.
That was awesome.
So let me point this out.
First time I've seen that, by the way.
We gave out a stinker last night. I did, not we. I don't like. I'm not going to put you on this stink. I did, and it's important to be upfront and recognize that. The only caveat I will say is that I didn't have us lose over $3 in juice.
I'll give you a stinker. I laid $2 when they fell behind on the live markets last night.
We're talking about the Dodgers-Nationals game last night. Mitchell Parker making his major league debut.
Lights out.
The first National to win his major league debut since Steven Strasburg in 2010, and he did it against the Dodgers of all teams on Jackie Robinson Day at Chavez Ravine. But that's baseball. And if you had trusted in the Washington Nationals after blowing a 5-run lead to the Oakland A's the night prior, and that Tyler Glasnow after going 7 scoreless with 14 Ks at his previous start would have a stinker.
Nothing left in the tank.
It's baseball, baby. That's the beauty of that. So the only saving grace I'll say about my terrible, no good, rotten bet last night was that I laid the alt run line at -105. So I only lost $1.05 as opposed to a full price there. But what a stinker from me last night. By the way, Patrick Corbin gets to start tonight. So happy to all of you who enjoy Fade Corbin Day. I think he's losing at 69% of his plays. All right, let's get to it. I'll throw to you here first for your best bets for tonight, because you are a busy man here on the diamond and everywhere.
You want to hear something funny? So the Dodgers just announced their starter. The guy's last name is Hurt.
Yes, we hurt inside.
That could not have been any more poetic. Okay, yes, let's get to tonight's best bet. So Dinger Tuesday, I did bet a home run prop tonight. I think Kyle Schwarber goes yard. I was on the Phillies yesterday laying the run line. I'm on the Phillies again today. I fade the Rockies every single day. That's kind of my vibe. But the props that I really like tonight, there's one strikeout prop that I really like tonight, and it's Logan Gilbert over 7.5 strikeouts against the Reds. This is a late game. You got plenty of time to get this in. Doesn't start for about 3 hours. But the reason I think Logan Gilbert's strikeout prop market is undervalued at this stage of the year is he has made a significant tweak to his arsenal. And again, this is information that is very widely available if you follow the right sources, but he has made a significant drop in fastball usage by about 14%, and he's replaced it with a cutter, and this cutter is off the charts according to Stuff Plus from Fangraphs. So again, I think when you look at pitchers and guys that have long track records, the numbers are pretty baked in, but when they make a tweak to their arsenal and all of a sudden they have a different repertoire than they did all of the prior years, that all of these numbers, and Logan Gilbert's been around a long time, is baking in, I think you could feel comfortable that you're getting some value to the upside there. And, oh, by the way, he's facing the Reds tonight, who have a top 5 strikeout rate against righties. And also Hunter Green, on the other side tonight, is a strikeout pitcher. Seattle strikes out a ton. The total in this game is 7. The Nerfy here at Circa's -160. This feels like a pitcher's duel tonight in Seattle. and I am taking Logan Gilbert. Really favorable price, over 7.5 Ks plus money at MGM right now, plus 115. I feel like that's a really good price because I think Logan Gilbert's strikeout number is a little bit undervalued at this early stage of the year as he tweaks with his repertoire, less four-seam fastballs, more cutters, and it has been a very, very devastating pitch so far.
All right, so recap those very complicated plays.
Yes, not that complicated. Phillies on the run line.
Yep.
Kyle Schwarber to hit a home run.
Okay.
And Logan Gilbert to go over 7.5 strikeouts. Here are the pitches props. These are a little more complicated.
Boy. Here
These are all happening in the next couple hours or so. There's one happening later, but for the most part, these are all sweating. I tweeted them out.
All right, Jared Lee Smith, just to check, in case you can't write them down right now, you're in the car. So run through these.
Twins, Orioles, bottom first. The Orioles batting over 15.5. Guardians, Red Sox, bottom first. Red Sox batting over 15.5. Padres, Brewers. Brewers batting over 15.5. Bottom first. Braves, Astros, bottom first. You're noticing a theme here.
Yeah.
A lot of home teams with road pitchers. Braves, Astros, bottom first. Over 15.5. Houston is the batting team there. Rockies, Phillies, Austin Gomber on the mound for Colorado. Phillies, bottom first. Over 15.5. That's all happening in the next hour. So get these in now. And in the late game, our one road matchup tonight. JP Sears pitching for Oakland tonight. Love lefties against the Cardinals. They smash lefties. So Cardinals top first over 15.5 late night in Oakland. Let's go, baby.
So he tweeted these out at Jared Lee Smith. You're 30-20 on the year. You went 4-1 last night.
Not bad. And the one was by the hook.
And you had that situation.
Crazy one.
You had
four pitches, 2 outs, and we still got home.
Yeah. So
that's winning, baby.
So do you play many unders?
I played 2 unders this year. Here's the way I view the unders.
Of your 56 to date, you've played 2 unders.
0-2. So I'm 30-18 on overs. and so the unders to me don't hold as much value because I don't think pitchers in the first inning value pitches as much as the hitters do. I think you're down 0-2. The pitcher's like, waste one. So I think the value's all to the over here. And if we're going to get 15.5, other sports books, DraftKings, Caesars give you 19.5, and they give you plus money to the over. I think that's a little tougher because I think a lot of pitches. Again, the average major league hitter sees 4 pitches per at-bat. You do the math. You see 4 guys in an inning, you're getting a 16. You're basically betting on whether or not it'll be a 1-2-3 inning. That's kind of the bet in a simple form. There's nuance to it. You could still get home even if it is a 1-2-3 inning if some guy has a crazy 7 or 8 pitch at bat.
So we're going to touch on the play-in tournament. Everything you need to know coming up top of the hour. Doug Kazarian will give us his thoughts on the play-in tournament as well as some series prices. So we're going to get into all the NBA action. Those games don't start till 7:30. I dipped my toe into baseball. The water was very cold. I immediately
ran away. We're going to win tonight.
Ran away. So I want to show sweat. We're going to go Capitals, Flyers, first period under.
Wow.
So I texted our good friend Todd Furman because this is essentially a win or go home situation for the Capitals. If the Capitals win tonight, they will clinch the final wild card berth. They sit with 89 points. If they lose, it opens the door for the Red Wings, for the Penguins, and the Flyers have 87 points. They need to win in regulation, so he didn't like the full game under, which is as high as 6, because if the Flyers were to be losing, they're going to pull the goalie and all that. Yeah. But do we get a playoff type of tightness in that first period? Even money to the under 1.5. Why not? A little puck sweat. Starting top of the hour. Mike Sanford next.
This is VSiN Primetime with Tim Murray and Jonathan Von Tobel on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Don't miss out on any of the NBA playoff action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From the play-in tournament, which starts tonight, through the finals, DraftKings Sportsbook has you covered with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code VSiN, V-S-I-N. New customers can bet $5, get $200 in bonus bets instantly. The code, once again, VSIN, only on DraftKings Sportsbook. The crown is yours. Alongside Jared Smith, I am Tim Murray, top of the hour. We will continue our discussion on the play-in tournament, which gets started tonight. First up, the Los Angeles Lakers visiting the New Orleans Pelicans, where they are a 1-point underdog. The Lakers are, and the Golden State Warriors a 3-point favorite at the Sacramento Kings. DraftKings still selling that at 2.5. But the draft takes place a week from Thursday in Detroit, and he's been joining us all throughout the college football season and now draft season to help us get the latest on these prospects from a coaching perspective. It is our coach, Mike Sanford, longtime offensive coordinator in the college ranks and most recently the interim head coach of Colorado, joins us on a progressive guest line. So there's a bunch of guys that we want to get to. I want to get your thoughts on the defensive backs as well. But I just want to circle back because you live there in Denver. There does seem to be a believed desperation at the quarterback position. Do you think, before we get into Bo Nix and Michael Penix, do you think, Mike, they could be looking to be aggressive and trade up to get one of the tier, I'll call them the non-Calebs that are available in this draft?
I think there's a chance, and I think it's a very, very outside chance. And I think the reason for that is because of the lack of draft capital, the lack of roster capital, frankly, that would conjure up a trade that would be deemed worthy enough for some of these quarterback-starved, deprived franchises that are going to end up in the top 4. And I still think that 1 through 4 are going to it's going to be quarterbacks because the need for quarterbacks in this being what I do believe is a very, very rich quarterback class that I think is going to end up panning out to being a solid group of quarterbacks with a couple superstars in there. But I do not think that the Broncos situation with no second-round pick in the 24 draft, sitting at 12, really the only trade piece that they could probably move would be Patrick Surtain II, really the only franchise-type player in this entire organization right now. I just don't see it happening. I don't think they have enough firepower to make it an offer that's good enough and hedge away future draft picks. They've already been doing that for the last 3 years with the Russell Wilson and Sean Payton trades. So I just don't see it possible. I don't see it likely, but I think there's a possibility, a very, very, very small chance.
Coach, how do you evaluate Drake May? I mean, I feel like he's the one guy that we're not talking about a whole lot. A lot of J.J. McCarthy buzz, and of course, Jaden Daniels of Washington just all of a sudden sprouted up over the weekend. And now the end of the first round with Penix and Nix. But is Drake May kind of lost in the sauce here with the evaluations?
I think he's been sliding for good reason. I think that both Caleb Williams and Drake May went into the 2023 college football season just slam dunk 1 and 2. They were going to be the guys that, without a question, were going to come off the board at 1 and 2. And I think more that you take a deep dive into all aspects related to their 23 game tape, some stuff that was observed at the combine. I think that there are some question marks, particularly about Drake May. The 23 season, when he didn't have his best core wide receivers, there was a big drop-off. I think that he has the steepest learning curve of any quarterback in this top 6 at the NFL level because of some of the footwork, some of the on-time throwing that's required. I've heard people say he's the best anticipatory thrower in this draft class. People who have that hot take don't watch enough film because I think, frankly, he's been a half-side read guy, hasn't been a full-field read guy unless it's your standard Y cross concept. So I think there's a lot of learning that needs to take place for a guy like Drake May. And I think Drake May is going to be a great NFL quarterback only if he ends up in a great nurturing environment. As we go back to that nature versus nurture, I think that he needs to be in that. Vikings is the place that I think is just the perfect setup for a guy like Drake May. And so I think that he is he's a really good prospect, but don't put him in a bad situation.
We're talking to Mike Sanford, longtime offensive coordinator, Division I ranks. By the way, did you see your former boss, Jim Harbaugh, in the video that he's living in an RV right now?
The RV life, man. You know, it's so funny. I worked for him. It's been about 15 years now, 16 years. And when I see that, I'm like, that is just on brand Jim Harbaugh. And anybody thinks that that's a publicity stunt?
Who's got it better than him living in an RV? Nobody.
Nobody. Dude, I'll tell you this. who's living with a beachside view in Huntington Beach, California.
Oh,
Yeah, it's not bad. Him and Greg Roman just chilling in a. By the way, I saw someone tweet out. It said, if this guy's not drafted an offensive lineman, I don't know who would. Right? You know, it's just like
that's so funny.
Yeah, I saw another where if they're not running the counter and power play out of 22 personnel, they're just conjuring it up as they sit on their lawn chairs by their RVs to just run the football just mercilessly at their opponents. It's going to be fun to watch.
So I want to get to the corners here shortly, but you did want to talk Xavier Legette. He is right now plus 330 to go in the first round, so certainly look as a little bit of a long shot. But what do you make of the South Carolina wide receiver, and what intrigues you?
Well, I think opposite of the conversation we just had about Drake May and Caleb Williams entering 2023 as a college football season, there wasn't a whole lot of talk about this Xavier Legette outside of Columbia, South Carolina. He's a local product from the area there in the Carolinas. And I'll tell you what, I was just blown away by this guy at the Senior Bowl. I didn't know his name. I didn't know who he was. I went to the Senior Bowl without much research being done on all the prospects. And I did that on purpose. I wanted to see who jumped out to me, both at the Senior Bowl and at the Combine. And by saying that Xavier Legette jumped out would be the biggest understatement on planet Earth. This guy is a monster. He has DK Metcalf written all over him. His performance at the Combine in and of itself was absolutely ridiculous. To be weighing, I think he actually did end up weighing in at the Senior Bowl at 227, got down to 221 by the Combine, ran a 4.3940. The guy's big. He's physical. He's got massive hands. He's got unbelievable vertical and broad jumps, and he's turned into a really, really good route runner. I think that this guy's going to end up having a tremendous NFL career. And I interviewed him at the Combine, had a chance to speak with this young man, and he is all business from a small town in the country. And he's going to be a guy that is going to be a coach's dream, especially with that skill set and size and speed profile.
Mike Sanford joining us here as he has throughout the draft process, giving us some coaching perspective. He was at the Senior Bowl. He was at the Combine. One of the markets that has really piqued my interest is this cornerback market. We haven't talked a ton about it. You were down at the Senior Bowl. That's kind of when Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo, I think, burst onto the scene a little bit. He ran really well. But then you've got Terrion Arnold, who from Alabama has, in my eyes, at least from the draft perspective and the mock drafts out there, has slowly been creeping up. And then it was interesting. I was listening to Todd McShay today on a podcast, and he kind of nonchalantly about Arnold said he'll probably be the first corner selected. And I said, wow, it's kind of very, as matter of fact, considering he's the underdog to go as the first corner. So from a coaching perspective, what do you see from Mitchell and Arnold, and who would you pick as the first corner?
Well, it depends on what you're looking at systematically, because Terrion Arnold did not have a good combine from a standpoint of his measurables. He ran a 4.5140, and if that's going to be your number one corner that you're going to ask to, travel all over the field with a guy like Tyreek Hill or CeeDee Lamb, I don't know that you like a 4.51 corner. Certainly there have been some that have been successful. He had a bad combine until the position-specific workout, and he is an absolute technician. He's got tremendous feet. Majority of what he did in college with a lot of success was a bit of a non-physical mirror match concept of man coverage, press man coverage. Very good. Not as good at the top of routes, not as good, playing off coverage. So if you're a team that plays true press man and you want somebody to just stay in a receiver's hip, Terrion Arnold's a great pick. But Quinyon Mitchell, this dude's a freak. And not only is he a freak in how he tested, he was a complete lockdown corner in all of the one-on-ones at the Senior Bowl. I think he's has a bit more of a steeper curve from the standpoint of just DB specific work, but he's the guy that you want to put on a number one X receiver. He's physical. He's got big hands. He can latch on, and he makes plays at the point of attack. The one downside on Quinyon Mitchell, might have had the worst ball skills catching the football at the Combine of anybody that I've ever seen in a workout. So maybe he's just creating the old Quinyon Island and nobody throws his way, so he doesn't have to drop 16 interceptions. But he is going to be an absolute lockdown corner. I got Quinyon Mitchell going first.
Mike, always appreciate it. Great stuff. Next week will be 48 hours out from the draft.
I can't wait. It's going to be a blast.
There he is. Mike Sanford joining us on our progressive guest line. Longtime offensive coordinator, most recently at Colorado. That's Jared Smith. I'm Tim Murray. We've got the NBA play-in tournament starting tonight. The latest on the odds and who we like. Top of the hour.